I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Listen to Pavarotti.
Can I be your superhero?
We were all led to believe, Steve and Christy, that, oh, they died in their sleep. That is not what happened at all.
You don't expect the prosecutor to lie to you. And we were lied to. All the parents were lied to. We weren't given the details. It was disgusting, and they kept saying stuff like crime of passion and house or a party house. And we're like, what's going on here? The officers were distracted with giving minors in possessions when they're literally filming the house that these kids get murdered in. That town has to clear up some priorities and realize that, noise complaints and alcohol is only a part of their job. And they need to make sure that they're protecting these kids if they want to keep doing business.
Hello, welcome to The Revealing. I'm your host, Pavarotti, and I'm here to discuss the Idaho 4 case. And it's time to unpack one of the major causes around this case for the cover-up. And this is the one that even the people that claim to be after the truth, but still in their mind believe Kohberger's guilty, refuse to accept. And the reason they refuse to accept it is because they don't go and look at all the evidence in the case. They stare at documents, and then they come up with wild theories based on, I don't even know what, and they ignore the truth in the case. We're not going to do that here. We're going to point out the truth, follow where the evidence actually takes us, and lead us to the final conclusion, which is no doubt the truth of the matter. And one of the things that you hear Mr. G say in that interview, I think is very profound because he mentions it specifically.
The officers were distracted with giving minors in possessions when they're literally filming the house that these kids get murdered in.
That's right. He's discussing the Banfield stop. And the way he's discussing it, it's almost as if he knows what we know, that the Banfield stop happened at the time of the atrocity. That doesn't make the atrocity happening at 3 a.m. That makes the Banfield stop happening at 4 a.m. The body cams and their little police report with their radio calls that don't match up to anything anyways were clearly manipulated. And you have to study. This is where everybody gets messed up. All these so-called truthers. Like I listened to one, they believe that it's the undercover police car that's seen on Indian Hills, but somehow don't believe it's the undercover police car that's seen making the passes around King Road. Well, that's because they haven't studied the FBI report. Once you study the FBI report, you'll realize that the undercover police car is the one that crosses the road there at the A&W Root Beer. And once you realize that the A&W Root Beer didn't capture it making a right, it went straight, then you have to realize that if you believe the Indian Hills car is the undercover cop car, then you have to believe the undercover cop car is the one making the first 3 passes around King Road. But they're so blind into thinking Kohberger's guilty, they'll never see it. We're going to look at it in this one, though, because it's the key to this whole case, I assure you. So hold on to your hats, folks. This one's going to get real. Okay, so when we start this map of the area and the movements of suspect vehicle, according to the FBI report, let's denote some key locations here. This is the Moscow PD. This is the Grove Apartments, where the undercovers would absolutely be making a pass by them as part of their nightly route. These are the 3 camera locations on Indian Hills. This is the camera location at the A&W. There's a camera location here on Louder Avenue, and then a camera location here on Linda Lane. Important to note all those before we get started. Now, if we follow the likely path of suspect vehicle 1, we can pretty much assume it left the MPD, drove past its undercover narcotics route of the Grove Apartments here, and then simply made its way down up to Indian Hills, where it's captured on video on these 3 cameras according to the FBI report. The first camera at 3:26:10, The second camera at 326.35. The third camera at 326.43. And as you can see, we're going to just follow the FBI's report to a T. 326.10, 787 Indian Hills. 326.35, 763 Indian Hills. 326.43, 755 Indian Hills. It's next seen at 328.56 at 1311 South Main Street, the A&W Root Beer camera. Then 329 at Ridge Road. 329.04, again, because there's two cameras at Ridge Road. And then past Linda Lane at 328.48, followed by entering the King Road neighborhood on 1112 at 3:30 and 22 seconds. So following everything in the FBI report, this is what we would see. The vehicle will then continue up Indian Hills, turn west onto Steiner here, where it's caught at 328.56 at the A&W Root Beer camera. And then the vehicle will continue on until it reaches the two camera locations over here at what they call Ridge Road. But it's Ridge Road in Louder, and it's caught continuing to travel west. Right here, where they list two more sightings at 329.02 and 329.04. Then the vehicle continues up Louder onto Taylor, where it will cross the 1320 Linda Lane Road at the dumpster camera, and they list it once again on the camera footage at 329.48. Then the vehicle will proceed into the King Road neighborhood to make the first pass. It's obviously the same vehicle the entire time. Now, we get to actually watch the FBI report live, thanks to them releasing this footage. And we'll point out a few things about this first pass of Rosie and Tesdahl into the neighborhood. And as they come through, as the FBI report denotes, they're caught on camera on 11/22. They denote it right here as they're making this turn. And then there's Rosie and Tesdahl in the undercover cop car. And then we'll notice in this window right here, the lights continue on straight. Then we'll notice in this window up here, the tail lights will appear as it's going up the hill around the Queen Road apartments. You can clearly see the tail lights up here. Now, the next thing we're going to notice is how fast these headlights come around this house right here. It denotes a vehicle not turning around and stopping, but continuing on, probably right next to the King Road residence, right before their driveway. Where are we at? Where are we at? We want to look at this time, just like the FBI report said, right here. See how the headlights are coming up, and then they turn. That vehicle's going down beside the King Road residence, but it obviously stops right before it gets to the house coming down the side street between King and Queen. Now look how long it sits there. We can now fairly assume that the vehicle is stopped and Tesdahl is letting Rosendahl out of the vehicle to go and rendezvous into that King Road residence with one of the residents. And we can see they sit here for quite some time as he has exited the vehicle to head inside. And he is still sitting there. And he is still sitting there. And then if you look at these windows on the second floor, not the first floor, that's just some lights inside the house. That's not people signaling people. Look on this second floor, and we'll see when Tesdahl decides to start making his passes. He probably sat there for some time and went, well, I better not just sit out here the whole time. I better look like I'm doing something. And there he goes. And he's going to report says. It's captured right here again on the FBI report and the timestamp. And then the vehicle is going to pull out. It's going to go west on Taylor, which turns into Walenta. Okay, so these were photos that were taken that evening by, I believe it was Talbot. And I will note that if you look in the body cam footage, this vehicle right here wasn't there when the body cam footage of the initial 911 call was taken. This one must have came just a little bit later, but it was sure parked there that evening. That one kind of looks familiar to me. But as you can see, there was no snowfall on the ground on this side of the house. So he would have been let out about here and he would have walked around. This vehicle wouldn't have been there at that time. And he would have just walked around to how people enter this house right up here. And they would have got his footprints walking that way. Just like they capture in the photos here. See these footprints? See, somebody walked up this way, all the way around the stump to the back door of the house. And then they zoom in. You can see how the fence comes down along the side here. And see how they're zooming into the fence. And then they zoom into these footprints right here. This one being the one that you can see the best. That's walking up to the house from around the side of the house. And then, of course, you see the footprints as it walked to the back door and then walked away from the back door. And we know where these footprints went because they spent some extra time on these footprints. So then we have this MPD report by Officer Corbin Smith on November the 13th. And then according to Corbin, he got a call about noon that Nunez arrived on the scene, and he went through the house and he described what he had seen. And then he goes on to say he was assigned to hold security at the rear slider door. This was the alleged point of entry of the suspect. He observed very large footprints in the snow. He used a tape measure and the shoe size. And Ken, this is why I keep saying I understand your point, but according to him, he says the shoe size measured approximately 13.5 to 14 inches. So I believe the tape that's showing 13.5 to 14 is not a tape that shows normal inches. It's actually a shoe size measuring tape. So the shoe size measured between 13.5 to 14 inches. And he goes on to say the footsteps went to and from the rear slider. He observed the trail of footsteps head away from the slider, then turn right around a stump and into the backyard and lead toward the front of the house. He observed a set of small handprints on the windows. But later on, what's going to be described is those shoe prints coming up the side of the house, going to the rear slider, and then leaving and actually going up towards the neighbor's yard. So the person enters the house around the stump, but leaves the house heading towards the neighbor's yard, in my opinion, heading towards Walenta Drive. So what I believe the evidence is going to show is that at approximately 3:32, the undercover cop car stops about right here, lets Rosendahl out, and he's going to walk around to the back of the King Road residence and enter the residence here. Later on, he will leave the residence following the footprints this way, and he will make his way up to Walenta Drive right here where he is picked up by Tesdahl. And let's see if the FBI report of movements of suspect vehicle back that up. So now when we look at the FBI report, it makes more sense. Tesdahl and Rosie come through the first time. They circle around and they don't stop here. They actually stop up by the King Road residence. Tesdahl lets Rosie out, and then Tesdahl continues on. Goes down and all the way to Paradise where he's caught on camera. And then we knew that the vehicle kept stopping somewhere in this area. Now we know why. He's looking for Rosie to come out and meet him where he's supposed to meet him on the road here. So he goes up and he makes another pass because he's killing time. This time, he doesn't really stop very long right here. He's just waiting on Rosie. And then he pulls out and he comes down, and somewhere in this area, he pauses because he's looking through the woods at the back of the house for Rosie to come out. Well, Rosie still hadn't come out. He goes all the way where he's caught on camera at Paradise, comes all the way back up. Again, stops in this area. He's looking for Rosie. He goes to the White's apartments, sits there for a minute, trying to kill some time. Pulls out, goes all the way back to here, stops, looking for Rosie. He's still not out. Goes all the way back down to the Paradise camera where he's caught. Again, stops up here. He's looking for Rosie. Rosie still hadn't come out. Goes back to the White apartments. Then comes all the way back down. And then he turns around, goes to the White's apartments. Waits just a few minutes. And then he's going to make the third pass. This time he's going to see the DoorDash driver walking. And we can almost guarantee it because you can see he's pulling through at 3:56. We'll look for all those same cues. So as the vehicle pulls around, FBI report notes it right here. And you'll see the taillights in this window going up Queen Road. And we'll continue to see taillights shine in the upper window up here as he continues on up. And there's the taillights as he's getting close to making the pass at Linda Lane. And when we last see the taillights up here, the time frame between when you see these taillights up here, he's already made the turn at Linda Lane, and the time we see the headlights over here, this time is a lot slower than the other two times. And that's why the DoorDash says the guy looked zoned out as he's driving through here with his dome light on, because he probably was. He was going real slow. And this is also when Tesdahl's report, see, here's the lights going really slow this time. And he would have been seeing the tail lights of the DoorDash driver, and the DoorDash driver would have been seeing him somewhere around here because the DoorDash driver in between there and when you see this vehicle pull around, see their receipt showed that they delivered the DoorDash at 3:59:00. So as he's pulling down beside the house looking for Rosie, now the DoorDash driver must have been walking back towards the house to actually deliver that DoorDash package or whatever they were doing when the DoorDash was being delivered. Because sometime between where he pulled around that house and this DoorDash driver went down and delivered the DoorDash, see, here he goes, pulling out now. And he's going to pull out, and this time he's going to go real slow as he goes down the Linta. But the DoorDash must have been walking at this time because in another 25 seconds, they're going to click the receipt deliver on the DoorDash order at the front door. So as the vehicle pulls out, this time you can bet he's fairly sure Rosie is walking up to where he's supposed to meet him. And that's why when you see these lights of this vehicle, it's going really slow. DoorDash delivery right now. DoorDash is going to be walking back to their car. There he goes. See how slow he's going? Because he knows he's picking up Rosie just right down from here. Look how slow. Wow, almost stopping at that point, because that's where he's going to pick up Rosie. And that's why the FBI report says suspect vehicle was caught on camera here at 3:59:04, but this time doesn't go the same route that it had been going. It actually stopped about right here for less than a minute where he would have picked up Rosie. Then it turns around, and as it comes back up, it's caught on camera here at 4:14. And then it pulls right around to right here where you see the Banfield stop actually happening.
The officers were distracted with giving minors in possessions when they're literally filming the house that these kids get murdered in.
Now, I can literally show you about 80 data points that proves that entire scenario. But when you clearly look at, for example, the footprints, like the officer said in his report, we believe this was the entry and exit point of the assailant, yet they ignore them completely with their narrative of Koberger parking up on the hill, coming in from the left side and leaving on the left side where he wouldn't have left footprints. And they ignore those boot prints coming around the side of the house and then leading back up to Walenta. Well, you got to wonder how they ignore evidence like footprints going into the entry point and exiting the exit point. The only way they're going to ignore those is if they know whose footprints those were. And I think it's quite evident whose footprints those were. And then if you truly understand the FBI's report of movements of suspect vehicle, then you cannot come to any other conclusion that suspect vehicle was the undercover police car up until that last pass of the vehicle that pulls in at 404. And if you truly believe the green car is the car that's captured on the footage at 401 on Ridge Road, then you have to believe what I just showed you. The fact that there's people out there that's supposed to be sharp at this stuff and they come to ridiculous conclusions is beyond me. But it's never going to help us get to the truth. If I'm the only one pointing this stuff out, it'll never get out there. Other people have to open their eyes to what the facts of the case show, because this is going to be one of the main reasons of what happened after the atrocity. So when you see that Ford Explorer that was the brother or sister of one of the victims pull in and park at the King Road residence at 429, well, then you know that there was other things that went on between then and the 911 call, and we can assume that law enforcement was in on it quite a bit. I mean, there is no doubt in my mind that some of them was in on it quite a bit, as well as the officials of the university. And here's my last point to that. When was the last time you ever seen this? Because I believe their body cams only come on when they're about to pull into an incident. They either have to press the button or they have to turn their lights and siren on for their body cams to be activated. And we know that there wasn't any lights or sirens turned on, so that means he had to reach up and push that button. Why would he push that button at this point versus when everybody else does right as they arrive at a scene?
The first question you want an answer to is, when does the body cam, a police officer's body cam, get turned off or on?
So an officer's body camera is not required to be on for their entire shift. That's actually prohibited by law. But officers, according to our policy, are required to turn them on anytime we're doing any kind of enforcement action. The body cameras will be turned on if we activate our lights on our car. That, like a traffic stop, those will automatically turn on. Or if we're having to use emergency vehicle operations, the body camera and our dash camera will automatically come on together. But they also can be automatically, or they can be manually activated by pushing a button. So if an officer is out somewhere and then something starts happening, he can push that and immediately activate that.
So why is Nunez, who obviously doesn't have his lights or siren on, he's just casually driving to a scene, why is his body cam on so early so we can listen to his music and him just chilling as he drives? Doesn't this seem odd? Because you would think he would push it as soon as he got to the scene like every other officer. So this is another way to know this was a staged scene. I'll have the other doc breakdown for you on that FBI report that they tried to keep from the defense up until almost trial time that showed nothing but exculpatory evidence to Brian Kohberger, but more to the point, shows that it was somebody other than Brian Kohberger who committed this atrocity. Please like and subscribe to the channel. Post your comments, your thoughts, your criticisms, and I've got so much more to bring you on this subject, unfortunately. Pavarotti's out.